Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So, as we study the life of Holy Mother, Sri Sarada Devi, we're talking about her as a guru and as the goddess. So before we start, any comments or questions, anything that needs to be clarified before we start ahead? All right, dears. One night at Jairambati, Holy Mother talked about the active and the contemplative life. Brahmachari Bharata said, Mother, Swami Keshavananda says, labor hard to fulfill your duties. Labor hard to fulfill your duties, and then you will achieve everything as ordained by God. Holy Mother replied, no doubt, you must do your duty. It keeps one's mind in good condition. But it is also necessary to practice japa, meditation, and prayer. One must practice these disciplines at least in the morning and the evening. Such practice is like the rudder of a boat. When a person sits for prayer in the evening, he can reflect on the good and bad things he did during the course of the day. Then he should compare his mental state on that day with that of the previous day. Next, while performing japa, he should meditate on the chosen ideal. In meditation, he should first think of the face of his chosen deity, and then meditate on the entire body of the deity from the feet upward. Unless you practice meditation in the morning and evening, side by side with your work, how can you know whether what you are doing is desirable or undesirable? And I'm going to repeat those words because they're very profound for us. One must practice these disciplines, japa, meditation, and prayer, at least in the morning and the evening. Such practice is like the rudder of a boat. When a person sits for prayer in the evening, he can reflect on the good and bad things he did during the course of the day. Then he should compare his mental state on that day with that of the previous day. Why? Because it is our thoughts that produce our speech and our actions. So if we indeed reflect, my mental state was better today than it was the day before, or worse, whatever it is, then we have some way of thinking about how well we're doing. It's so hard to know. Then he should compare his mental state on that day with that of the previous day. Next, while performing japa, he should meditate on the chosen ideal. In meditation, he should first think of the face of the chosen deity, and then meditate on the entire deity from the feet upward. Unless you practice meditation in the morning and evening side by side with your work, how can you know whether what you are doing is desirable or undesirable? Bharata said, some say that one achieves nothing through work. One can succeed in spiritual life only through japa and meditation. Holy Mother responded, how do they know how do they know what will give success and what will not? Does one achieve everything by practicing japa and meditation for a few days? Nothing whatsoever is achieved unless Mahamaya clears the path. Nothing whatsoever is achieved unless Mahamaya clears the path. Didn't you notice the other day that one person's brain became deranged because he forced himself to do excessive prayer and meditation? If one's brain is deranged, one's life is useless. The intelligence of a human being is very precarious. The intelligence of a human being is very precarious. It is like the thread of a screw. If one thread is loosened, one becomes crazy, or one becomes entangled in the trap of Mahamaya and thinks oneself to be very intelligent. One feels quite all right, but if the screw is tightened in a different direction, one follows the right path and enjoys peace and happiness. One should always remember God and pray to Him for right understanding. How many are there who can meditate? How many are there who can meditate and practice japa all the time? At first, they earnestly practice these disciplines, but like N, their brains become heated in the long run by constantly sitting on their prayer rugs. They become very vain. They also suffer from mental worries by reflecting on things other than God. It is much better to work than allow the mind to roam at large. When the mind is free, scope to wander, confusion comes. My Naren, Swami Vivekananda, thought of these things and wisely established institutions where people would do work without concern for the results. Now that was a mouthful, what Mother was saying there. And almost certainly it will give rise to some thoughts, some reactions from you all. So what have you to say or to ask? What have you to add from your own experience or to ask about what she said?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, Haima?
My understanding is too much of anything is good for nothing. That's what I'm grasping it here. Don't overdo it, don't underdo it. Just do it in moderation, that you set up a schedule morning and evening, which many of us do that already. So at particular times, so it's just like eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Automatically, your mind goes towards that meditation and our spiritual practices. Once we set it up for a couple of years or 6 months, 3 months, then you get used to it. It's almost like part of our life.
Very well said. But I think we'll find that not everyone
Sure.
has found it so easy.
It's not easy, definitely not. I truly agree with that. In the beginning, I struggled months I struggled. Few years ago, several years ago, when I started nearly 18, 19 years ago, I struggled first 6 months to set it up, the timings. And it took some effort on my part. I had to persevere, to continuously persevere. It's time for me. I need to do this. That's it. Automatically, then my mind goes towards those. It took almost more than a year to get that settled.
Well, that you were fortunate that it happened so quickly.
You
That's very
did.
good. It indicates past life experiences according to
Thank you.
the way it's understood.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Thank you, Haima. Anything else from anyone?
Well, this is, and I think this is a wonderful advice from the mother, because even in Shankara, in Vivek Chudamani, in most of the shlokas, he says sada, 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 always, always, always. It gets me a lot of confusion with that one. But whereas, Chinmayananda says sada means not all the time. You still have to do your duties. Do not neglect your duties. But the sada indicates even while you're doing your duties, just think about the Lord.
Yes, yes. Devote 25% of your mind to the duties and 75% to the Lord. This is a prescription from Sri Ramakrishna. Anything else from someone else was about to speak at the time that Balakrishna spoke?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Glam.
I was going to share is that my experience is, for me, it is very hard to like set a definite time every day. So what I have decided is I will do twice a day, but the timing varies. I mean, I try to keep it consistent, but depending on whatever calls my attention that particular time, if it is something that I cannot um, not do, then I just do my japa later. So that seems to work for me, that at least I do twice a day and the number of times that Guru instructed, and some more as I can. But I have not been able to commit to a fixed time. And also, over time, I have learned how to direct when my mind starts wandering, to come back and then convert it into a prayer.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, this is why Sri Ramakrishna said the householder is the true hero, because they're having to fight the battle with both hands. They have no shield. They have no hand to hold a shield. They're dealing with their worldly duties and everything, all those demands that are not oftentimes not scheduled. And on the other hand, they're dealing with their spiritual life. So he says they're fighting with two swords. The left hand, the life of the world, the right hand, the life of the spirit. And he says this is why the householder is the true hero. So I understood what you said, Swayam, and dawn and dusk are best, but there is no. It's not like nothing happens if it doesn't happen at dawn and dusk. That's something indeed happens, and of course, Mahamaya does take into consideration the guilelessness of our heart when we are doing our duties and then get to our spiritual practices as soon as we can.
Actually, there is a couplet from Kabir in Hindi that I'll just say the meaning. So basically, he says that he's telling the mind that mind, slowly, slowly, everything happens, And then he gives the example, no matter how many pots of water the gardener pours on the particular plant or um, tree or whatever, it's only when the right season comes that the um, the fruit will come or the
Yes,
flower.
exactly. And there is also the very compassionate and merciful instruction from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy. So we do the best we can. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, was one of the foremost teachers of the householder. Anything else from anyone about what Mother said or any of the other commentary or instruction that was in those last few pages? All right. In April 1919 at Koalpura, a devotee received initiation from the Mother. Before returning home, he asked, Mother, what is the secret of spiritual life? In reply, Holy Mother pointed to a small clock and said, as that timepiece is ticking, so you go on repeating God's name. As that timepiece is ticking, so you go on repeating God's name. That's the way you will find fulfillment. You will not have to do anything else. Holy Mother emphasized japa and meditation to her disciples, but she also reminded them that devotion and self-surrender are the keys to attaining God's grace. She also reminded them that devotion and self-surrender are the keys to attaining God's grace. She said, we have practiced so much japa, we have observed so many spiritual disciplines, but nothing whatsoever is of any avail. How can anyone get liberation unless Mahamaya clears the path? O man, take refuge in God. Take refuge in Him. Then alone will Mahamaya be gracious and pave the way to liberation. And those of you who study and read the hymns of the Chandi know exactly what Mother is talking about. Take refuge in God.
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
what is taking refuge here means? I kind of have a little, but I would like to know what do you think about how to take refuge?
All right. What did she say? But also reminded them that devotion and self-surrender are the keys to attaining God's grace. O man, take refuge in God, take refuge in Him. Then alone will Mahamaya be gracious and pave the way for liberation. Sri Krishna says in chapters 3 and 4 of the Gita that the way to take refuge is to acknowledge that no matter how it seems to you, you are not the doer. God alone is the doer, which is the same thing that the Chandi says, absolutely explicitly. Mother alone is the doer. So that's the first point, if you're going to take refuge. This is the first point of self-surrender. Acknowledge, I am not the doer. No matter how it seems to me, the truth is, I am not the doer. Then, Mother mentioned devotion and self-surrender. Devotion, according to Sri Krishna in chapters 3 and 4, means offering everything to the Lord. First, you do it as a stand you take. First, you do it as, I believe in this because Krishna says it, because Holy Mother says it, because Sri Ramakrishna says it. God alone is the doer. Therefore, everything, all my actions and their fruits, all of my feelings, my thoughts, my perceptions, my moods, my projections, my memories, my reveries, all of that, I offer it. And you start the day by saying that. Oh, beloved, all this day and all it contains is offered to you. And then you can make a list if you like. That's done here. And then when you go to bed at night, you offer all of what happened during the day and all of what will happen during the night to the Lord. But it all starts with your beginning to practice satyagraha on the concept of I am not the doer. As long as we feel we are the doer, then there's no possibility of surrender. We feel I'm doing this, and the results are mine, and I take joy in them, I feel sorrow about them. Is that good, Shailesh? That's a very good question you asked.
I don't know. I don't want to disagree with you, but it's very difficult word to understand, taking refuge. Here's what I understand, and here's what I try to follow, and something which what you said. So devotion I understand, and self-surrender I understand. But I'm not the doer. I do not understand. What I understand is that whatever is happening by his will. Practically, I can accept that in some situations that things are not in my control. It is happening by his or her will. And I should adjust my understanding and I should become a good person. But I'm not the doer. It's very difficult. It's very, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say that it's very easy to say and difficult to do, but it is, for me, it has been very difficult to understand this. I always get confused with this taking refuge. But I do understand that it's God's will to. So little by little, I think I have been understanding it, self-surrender, but it has been very deep, it is struggle. Every day, like when we are working or doing things, it's very difficult that I'm not a doer to say that. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely acknowledged, Shailesh. This is why it was said that in the beginning it is a stand you take. You simply insist, no matter how it seems to me, no matter how it seems to me, all of my teachers, be they Sri Ramakrishna, what does he say? God alone is the doer. All else is illusory. That means it comes and goes and is an appearance, a seeming. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It means that the way it appears to us is illusory. So we start with a stand. I believe what the scriptures say. I believe what my teachers say. I will take a stand for that. And so I will continue to repeat to myself, particularly when there is difficulty, particularly when there is confusion. I will say, God alone is the doer. Lord, relieve me of this confusion. As Vivekananda says, God answers prayer, not from out there. In that sense, there is no out there, from right here, because the knowledge, the truth, already exists within us. The same truths, the same profound truths that are the Mahavakyas of the Upanishads, the truths of the Vedas, the truths of all the scriptures. Sri Ramakrishna says, and Vivekananda says after him, that they all exist right here. And that in Sri Ramakrishna's case, he said, Mother, reveal these truths to me. Reveal the truths of the Vedas, of the Puranas, of the Tantras, of the Upanishads, of the Gita. Reveal them to me. Let me come to a firm understanding. Was it easy even for him? No. I mean, the Lord of the universe practiced sadhana for 12 years, by some accounts 15 years. So for us to say it is difficult is just an acknowledgement of a truth. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep trying, keep insisting. This is what's meant by nididhyasana. We first hear the truth, then we contemplate on the truth and compare the truth as we've been told by how we behave. This is what Mother's saying. Morning and evening, we offer the day, then we compare the day. We continue to monitor. So it's never, ever going to be easy. Mahamaya is called Mahamaya for a very good reason. But there is Yoga Maya as well. We contain both Vidya as well as Avidya. We contain it. In a sense, we are it. I'm very glad we had this discussion, Shailesh. This is very opportune because Mother is never saying it's easy. But she says the keys are devotion and self-surrender. Those are the keys to refuge. That we take refuge when we say, I acknowledge, O Lord, that you alone are the doer. And whatever happens is your gift to me. Very hard to metabolize that.
Thank you.
Brother Shankara?
Shankaraji,
Oh,
Yes, yes, just so I am first, then Balakrishna.
okay. I was just going to say that, like Shailesh, I also find it a difficult practice, but the more I do it, I find that it's the same three, four situations where I feel like, oh, I did this and I didn't get that back or whatever. Usually it's about three or four, and it just again and again. But due to this practice of offering and thinking, telling God, you are the doer, I find that I hold on to those a little bit less each time. So what I have created in my mind is, remember you often mention that Russian doll that goes boom, 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 but then it comes in the middle.
Yes.
So I keep telling myself that the more I practice and the more I offer and make God the doer, I'm weighting the center more.
Yes.
And hopefully one day I will get more centered.
Well, that image is a good one for us to hold, of those dolls that are weighted at the bottom, those clown dolls. You bat that doll, and it goes whoop, way off center, and then it goes whoop, off center this way, but very quickly whoop, 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 back to the center. Why? Because it's weighted at the bottom. Our spiritual practice and the grace of the divine that prompted our spiritual practice. This is one of the things for us to keep absolutely clear. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have the grace of God. I would not be here on a Tuesday evening spending time in this way if I did not have the grace of God. The grace of God is what prompted me to go in this direction toward liberation. Is it easy? It's not called the razor's edge for nothing. We fall 1,000 times, we rise 1,001 times, says Vivekananda. But just remember, it is by the grace of God that you have any interest in this at all. Look around you. Millions and millions of people are within a 30-minute drive of where you're sitting. How many of them are sincerely interested in this? Is this an indictment? Is this a judgment? No. As Sri Ramakrishna says, everything happens at the right time. So you're sitting here this evening because it is the right time by the grace of the divine. Bala, you had something.
Yes, I agree with Shailesh. It's not an easy thing to practice that way, but of course, it's all, see, I try at every step, of course, even if I feel hungry, I say, okay, you are presenting to me as my hunger. Thank you, Lord. That's what at least I try to remember that way,
Oh,
anything.
that's very good.
And also, I accept at the end of the day, okay, whatever happens, it's all your will. It will be
Wait a
done.
minute. Let's deal with this hunger thing a minute before you go away.
Yes.
Who's hungry?
Well,
This is the thing. This is
yes.
the thing. It's like when Sri Ramakrishna went to that Katabarja sect, I think that's how it's pronounced, and he was eating, and that woman said, "Are you feeding yourself or are you eating for someone else?" And he acknowledged her clear vision. So when we are hungry, then we prepare some food. And as we're preparing the food, we're saying, you have manifested, as you said, Bala, as this hunger. So I am preparing some food to feed you. I am preparing this food for you. And so then when you get the food prepared, you say, now, here it is. Please take it, Lord. And then when you have offered it and you're satisfied that you feel that the offering is complete, then you take the food and satisfy the hunger. But the subtle realm, which Krishna addresses directly in chapter 5, the subtle realm has been dealt with. We are feeding that which is hungry. We are not the doer. Thank you, Bala. Is there more?
Yes, actually, I'm reading the, Latu Maharaj's book now. Of course, I finished all those things. Couple of things, especially taking refuge means what he did. He dedicated everything. There is no question, no thinking in his mind, nothing, whatever. Actually, at one time, Latu Maharaj was at the temple. So Sri Ramakrishna tells him, why don't you eat, go and eat some prasad? Then he says, no, in the Kali temple, they give, they slaughter all the, meat and all those things. I don't want it. Then he says, okay, why don't you go to the Shiva temple? It's all vegetarian food. You know what he says? No, I will eat what you eat.
Mm.
And actually, Sri Ramakrishna, from his plate, he fed him.
Of course he did. Why would he not? Because of what Latu, because
exactly.
of what,
This is what exactly the, on many occasions, on some other occasion, see, some other devotee comes to him and he was kind of, arrogant to Sri Ramakrishna and all those things. Latu Maharaj could not take it. He says exactly in the book, I gave him my mind. And then after the devotee leaves the place, Sri Ramakrishna says, they come because of all the worries and miseries they are going through in the worldly life. If we become harsh, where can they go? And then he says, go to him and ask a pardon from him. Latu Maharaj, without any thought process, without thinking, he goes there, but the devotee still continuing his, about Ramakrishna, and he again gave his mind and back, and he tells Ramakrishna about it. And then Ramakrishna says, no, you go and pray and get his pardon. And the third time he goes there and he apologizes him. And of course, the devotee also changed his mind completely.
yes.
The more I read in that book, really, that is where what we understand what is complete dedication and
yes, Latu Maharaj. We read earlier in this book that we've studied about Latu Maharaj's relationship with Mother. He was completely humble in her presence.
Yes. And also, actually, Vivekananda's comment after Ramakrishna passed away and all those things, he says, we all went to the, Ramakrishna, but the essence of Ramakrishna is only gained by Latu Maharaj.
Yes, Vivekananda said many dramatic things. It's hard to understand how this can be possible. I am often just baffled by the things that Swami Vivekananda said, because oh well, I won't go into it, but it is startling. Anything else from anyone? This is exactly the kind of discussion we should be having in this class. All right. So we'll read on. Mahamaya will be gracious and pave the way for liberation. Once Surendranath Sarkar asked Holy Mother whether Prarabdha karma could be counteracted by repeating the name of God. I'm going to repeat the question so we're all very clear. Once Surendranath Sarkar asked Holy Mother whether Prarabdha karma, the karma that brought us to this lifetime and is working its way out in this lifetime, asked Holy Mother whether Prarabdha karma could be counteracted by repeating the name of God. The mother replied, one must experience the result of Prarabdha karma. No one can escape it, but japa, or repetition of God's holy name, minimizes its intensity. It is like the case of a man who is destined to lose his leg, but instead suffered only from a thorn in his foot. So I'm going to repeat what Mother said. This is, if we have any doubt about the efficacy of japa to change our lives, the mother replied, one must experience the result of Prarabdha karma. No one can escape it. But japa, or repetition of God's holy name, minimizes its intensity. It is like the case of a man who was destined to lose his leg, but instead suffered only from a thorn in his foot. Why is this? Because our Prarabdha karma is what the sufferings of Prarabdha karma are to help us along the way so that we learn what we need to know, so that we don't repeat our mistakes. Once we've learned what we need to know, which is revealed to us by the practice of japa, contemplation, concentration, and meditation, those truths about ourselves are revealed to us. We don't need that lesson, in this case, the loss of a leg. We don't need that lesson anymore. So a thorn in the foot, or a scratch, as Mother said in another instance, will suffice. Now, this is a very important point about karma. Any comments or questions about it? Karma and the effect of japa, repetition of the name, and its effect on our Prarabdha karma, that arrow that is in flight that brought us into this life. Okay.
I have a question, Shankaraji.
Yes, dear.
This is wonderful in the sense, but the problem is, in order to do, you see, this is the same thing, prarabdha karma, what Mother is saying is true, but this is what they say, even though prarabdha karma, there is no way you can avoid it, but with the self-effort or thing, you can modify exactly what Mother said here. But the thing is, see, if I remember correctly, in what is that Ranganathananda's book, he says,
Ranganathananda's book, Divine Grace, yes.
Yeah, in the Divine Grace, there was one metaphor where the Shankara was ready to go to save one of his devotee, but he raises, he was having a fight with somebody.
No. The robbers were going to attacking him. Robbers were attacking him. And his first response was to call Shiva Shiva.
Yeah.
Then
he raises a stone.
He picked up a stone to throw at the robber.
Yes. And then Shankara says, okay, he's defending himself. And then he says, he just goes back and plays chess with Parvati.
Yeah.
This
dice,
is one,
dice.
Yeah, the dice. And the second thing is, it's very difficult for me to understand these metaphors. The second one is,
well, no, let's deal with that one first.
okay,
If we think that we are the doer, first he calls on Shiva,
yes,
but he doesn't trust. He doesn't have faith that Shiva will protect him. He doesn't have the faith. Now that faith is also something that is within. He has not yet learned what he needs to learn to have that faith. If he calls Shiva Shiva, that Shiva will come to protect him. So he picks up the rock and is going to defend himself. Now, how much is that going to succeed? You know, a gang of robbers, one rock, how much is that going to succeed? No, he gave way to fear and reacted rather than trusting Shiva Shiva. So that's the meaning of that. And so he was going to have a nasty lesson because he didn't trust in Shiva, who was on his way to help him. But instead, he decided to defend himself. All right. He continued to need that lesson that he was going to experience from being robbed, even though he picked up a rock to throw it at them, because he yielded to fear rather than holding to his faith. And the second one you were going to mention?
the second one, the Sri Ramakrishna gives this metaphor on in a village. There was a villager who, because of the floods, he sits under a tree, and the first somebody comes and says, okay, it's going to be more water, come. No, 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 I will wait for the Lord to take care of me. And then a boat comes, he does the same thing. And third time, somebody else would come and he does the same thing. And then he, he died. So when God asks him, I sent you 3 times to help you, but why didn't you take care of it? So, I mean, it is, that means God is telling you have to have a self-effort also, and either that way, or they say, okay, this is the God sent me, so I have to take care of myself. So
No. The point of that story is
yes,
that he calls on God to help him so he won't drown. And so it is only God. There's only God. So God appears in the form of these 3 people who come to help him. But he's looking for a dramatic sign. He's looking for God to reach down from somewhere and pick him up by his hand and pull him into God knows where. What Sri Ramakrishna is telling us is use your damn common sense. When something like this happens and you call on God and someone comes forward and says, here, I've come to help you, take their help. That's God. There is only God. God alone is the doer. This is what Sri Ramakrishna keeps telling us. God alone is the doer. So that man, he's presented with 3 opportunities to be saved and turns them all down because they don't meet his understanding of what God's help should look like. Is that clear, Bala, or is it still?
yeah, no, it is, yes. But see, the same thing, another one is in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, 5 and 6 shlokas, it says, you have to help yourself. So, it is...
You have to do your duty. It is not that you have to help yourself. You have to do your duty. You have to do what is assigned to you as duty. So if God alone is the doer, if we're going to metabolize that, if we're going to assimilate that, as Sri Ramakrishna says, then what Sri Krishna is saying to do in the Gita is simply to do as you're invited or expected to do. But don't think that you're doing it. I mean, either we buy the premise that God alone is the doer, or we don't. Now, it's very hard to assimilate that, but it must be assimilated if we're going to understand the scriptures. It must be assimilated. Sri Ramakrishna says it over and over in the gospel. I would dare to say 2 or 3 pages won't go by before he says that or something that means the same thing. God alone is the doer, all else is illusory. What does illusory mean? It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It means that it is not as it seems to be to us, and that arises and passes away, arises and passes away, which is the definition of unreal in the understanding of what is real and what is unreal. As Sri Ramakrishna says, once you have assimilated that God alone is the doer, and that becomes a reality to you as you experience your life, then you see, then you have this vijnana knowledge, this special knowledge, that God alone has become everything. All the everything of the universe and the 24 cosmic principles and so on. And so that everything you're dealing with, including everything of yourself, is the divine being. There is simply nothing else. But as Holy Mother says, this must be an experience. It can't, for it to be fully real to you. As was said earlier, what we do in the meantime is we take a stand for it. We say, I believe it because whatever scriptures we are most confident in, they all say it. Whether it be the Chandogya Upanishad or the Svetasvatara Upanishad or the Gita or the Puranas or the Tantras, all say the same thing. Brahman and Shakti, Shiva and Shakti are identical. And that is the only thing that's happening, is Shiva in motion, Shiva as action, is Shakti, and Shakti is inseparable from Shiva or Brahman as the heat of fire is inseparable from fire, as the luster of a gem is inseparable from the gem itself. All these things that are meant to give some context for us. But it's only, this is what Mother is saying. Mother is saying, it's only through the practice of japa and meditation that these become a reality for us because we come in real contact with them. When Krishna says that it becomes the realized souls, the illumined souls, pleasure to obey the Atman, is joy to obey the Atman. It means the Atman is the one giving the direction. We can deal with it however we like, but the realized soul, the soul who really has experienced the Atman, will be joyful in being obedient to the directions, the motivations and actions of the Atman. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Swami, I think I've heard this in Swami Sarvapriyananda's talk. Basically, another example, a story that makes a point of having stake a faith that all is God, but as long as we are embodied, using the common sense to sort of which God to obey, or putting it, in my own words. But the story is that there's this person who believes that everybody is Narayana. So one day this mad elephant is rushing into the crowd, and everybody's running and telling him to run. He says, "Oh no, the elephant is Narayana. He's not gonna harm me." And even the Mahout says, "Run, run," but the guy doesn't run, and so of course the elephant knocks him over. Then
Picks him up with his trunk, throws him against the tree, and knocks him unconscious.
And then people ask, "Well, why did you?" So he says, "Well, I thought the elephant is Narayana." So then they tell him, "Well, why did you not listen to the Mahout Narayana?"
Exactly.
So I think, again, as you have often mentioned, it's only, I think, when we get the true realization, then we don't need to think about these things. It'll become automatic. Until then, I think we do have to apply.
This man's had a startling and rather harsh lesson. The next time something like that happens, he's much more likely to listen to the Mahout Narayana. If someone says to him, the master tells another story in the gospel about a tiger coming. And, this person doesn't says, "Oh, the tiger's Narayana, the tiger's God." And so the tiger devours him. Well, you can bet that this man who was picked up by the elephant and flung against the tree and knocked unconscious, the next time someone says, "There's danger, get out of the way, get out of here," he'll take to his heels. So he had this was part of his, if you will, prarabdha karma, to be such that he listened to his teacher who had told him, it was his guru who had told him, that everything without exception is Narayana. So he was reflecting on that when he ignored everyone else as well as the Mahout Narayana. And Vivekananda, by the way, once said that a book could be written on any remark of the master. And somebody said, "All right, well, how could there be a book written by this simple little story about the Mahout Narayana?" An hour and a half later, as Swamiji had been expounding that in all of its relevance, the guy said, okay, I believe you. This is a true story about Vivekananda, a devotee who challenged him that when he said that a book could be written on any remark of the master. So it's 9 o'clock, dears. Are there any final thoughts from anyone? We'll leave it with a man who is destined to lose his leg, but instead suffered only from a thorn in his foot because he had practiced japa and meditation, and he no longer needed the lesson of losing a leg. Anything else from anyone?
Just a quick question, Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear.
Can we do japa on behalf of others?
Oh, by all means. It is the benefit is double then. You get the benefit of making the japa, and you get the benefit of being unselfish and loving toward someone else. Swami Prabhavananda, my teacher, was an absolute big fan of making japa on behalf of others, as was Swahananda. But it was really something that Prabhavananda triple underlined. He was once asked whether prayer works. And he says, "What, do you think you're separate? Of course it works." And then he said, one of the best things that you can do is make japa for others. Just say before you start, Mother, this half hour or whatever it is you're going to do, this course of japam is the merit of it and the benefit of it is dedicated to the other. And Swami Swahananda was the one who pointed out that it said there's a double whammy, that you get the benefit. In other words, the purification within you because of your repetition of the mantra, that vibration within you. And these are my words now, not his. But he said that you get the benefit of it. And it also is very beneficial for the other person. Very good question, Swaya.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
And Shankara ji, I belong to an association about 4 weeks ago. For 1 week, we chanted Mrityunjay mantra. Of course, they're this is quite a big organization, about 1 million times chanting for Indian COVID.
Ah, yes, of course. How wonderful. And don't think it didn't have any effect. We may not see the effect. We may not, there may not be sufficient way of getting the feedback about the effect. But don't think it did not have an effect. It had an effect. As Vivekananda said, we're all together at one point. We are all together at one point. And as one of the Catholic saints said, there is only one flesh we can wound. There is only one flesh we can heal. We're all together in this. And here, so beautifully this evening, those of you who made this a priority to come to this class to study the Holy Mother, what a joy.
I guess this question is because of what Balakrishna ji said about the Mahamrityunjay mantra. My question was more pertaining to the japa that my guru has given me.
Yes.
Can I?
Precisely.
Okay.
That's what Swami Prabhavananda was talking about.
Thank you.
The one is a ritual using another kind of mantra. The mantra that you were given is full of Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual treasure. You can bestow that treasure on another by your intention, by having that intention. And that's what Swami Swahananda was saying, that there's a double whammy then. This treasure will have its effect on you, and it will have its effect on them. Plus, you get the benefits of your unselfishness.
Thank you, Brother Shankar.
Oh, dearly beloved Lord, Om Asato Ma Satkamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amrutangamaya, Avirabir Moiti. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, lead us from this place of endless change and relentless noise to thine abode of silence, serenity, and peace. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Om Amen. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji ki Jai. Durga Durga Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. Go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until we meet again, which could be as early as tomorrow night for the Jnana Yoga class. We're now on chapter 10 of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. And then, of course, this Sunday, very happily. Well, first of all, let me say, there's been a wonderful amount of work done around here by devotees, and that continues tomorrow morning. My beloved sister is coming to do some final pruning and weeding and so on to make the place look even better. So many people came and were helpful and worked so hard. So the center will look very, very nice when we gather together on Sunday, July 4th. And I'm so sorry that those people who live far away can't come. But if you can come, if you live nearby and you can come, please join us. We'll be together for an hour or so in the chapel, and that'll all be Zoomed, of course. And then we'll come into the monastery for a potluck lunch. There'll be traditional fixins from the July 4th experience for those who partake of that sort of thing. And then there'll be whatever else anyone brings to share. So a potluck lunch, and of course, that can't be Zoomed. But looking forward to seeing those of you who can come on Sunday, July 4th. It's just so sweet that July 4th fell on a Sunday this time so that we can gather together. All right. Until next time, Any final thought or question for anyone, from anyone? All right, dears. Just as they say in the lovely Black gospel song, hold on to that plow, hold on, hold on to that plow, hold on.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Thanks, everybody.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
dear.
Hari Om. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.